Stanford. Um, but yeah, a short biography about myself. I was born and raised in Fergana, like I said. I grew up there. A lot of my family members are there. I have a big family there. My great grandma had 8 kids, and all those 8 kids had 8 kids too. So we were just all over the place. Um, I was like born in Fergana, but I also visited in Tashkent. Also traveled to Samarkand for a little bit. So I was all over the place. But then in I think 2011, my parents played for the green card, and they ended up getting it. And then we came here in 2012, I believe in April. So it was like right when school was about to end. So I didn't enter school yet. Got some time to adjust. But yeah, so I spent the rest of my time in the US just for the academic year. So from September to May, I would be in New York City. But for the rest of the time, for the summer, every summer, I would be in Uzbekistan. So although, look, I went to school in the United States, I was still pretty culturally present in Uzbekistan. In fact, I actually attended grades first to third there. It's called Public School Number 25. It wasn't the best school, but it was really close to me. And my grandma was actually a teacher there, so it was very convenient. And yeah, so this is a little bit about me. Now that I'm in college, or once I was in high school, I started to show a lot of interest in the STEM and research, but also a lot of the humanities, including like activism and poetry, which is really interesting because I never thought I would, pursue something in the humanities because it was so distant to me. When I came in, the only thing I knew was like math and science, which made the most sense to me. But I guess once I became more familiar with it, then I started to explore like, oh, what else could I do with it? And because like science is filled with so many of these like big words and like, I don't know, complex vocabulary that like a normal person would be familiar with, then I started to like convey those big words into smaller words and convey them in a way that like people understood, whether that be through poetry or creative writing. But yeah, so I applied to college 2 years ago. And before I applied, I started thinking about Harvard, I'd say sophomore year of high school. Sorry, give me one sec. And yeah, I just started to research schools, see which schools I'd be interested in. And like the biggest priority for me was that it wasn't in New York City. I really wanted to go abroad or go out of state. But my parents didn't want me to. They actually wanted me to stay in New York. They were like, oh, you should go to NYU or Columbia or something like that, just so I could stay close with them. But I really didn't want to. I really wanted to go out of state. And I felt like, oh, if I apply to Harvard, then they can't say no to Harvard. So that was my big goal. And then junior year, that's when we take a lot of like our harder classes, really kind of delve into our interests, and kind of create this like sort of narrative that people can follow through with. And then the summer before my senior year, which is my last year of high school, that's when applications really start. The Common App opens August 1st. So it's a little bit while to go for you guys, but you should start thinking about it now. But when the Common App opens, I definitely recommend to just like fill out your basic information just so you can already like get yourself to start the process. And once you do that, you kind of get familiar with like what they're really asking for you to do. You get to see like, oh, they want me to get 5 awards. They want me to list 10 accomplishments and like 10 activities and stuff like that. So then you kind of get to like know like what to look out for in like the next couple of months that you're filling out the application. Also, another huge like thing I'd say is to decide if you want to apply restrictive early action or early decision. I'd really recommend doing this because I think it kind of gets you ahead. One, it gives you a safety kind of net to like for yourself, just to know that like, oh, I, got into a college early, so I can kind of like chill for a little bit, but also to like get yourself like a strict deadline to finish your Common App. So then you can apply to these schools early, but then also still have time to like refine and tweak and like adjust your application for the regular decisions. So I applied restrictive early action to Harvard. and only Harvard, but then I got deferred, and that was like my biggest kind of like worry. I didn't think I was going to get into a good college. I was very confused because I felt like I had a lot of like really big accomplishments. Um, so then I got really humbled, and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to apply to more schools. And I ended up applying to 17 more schools. Although this is like a pretty big standard deviation from like the average. Most people apply to around 13, 15 schools. I just wanted to be safe, and so I would just apply to a little bit more. For a lot of people, the application process, just because you filled out the Common App, it's just very easy to just send it over, and sometimes the fees get covered. But yeah, so once I knew that I got deferred from Harvard, um, then I decided to apply to 3 safety schools. So these are schools that like I know for sure I'm going to get, and I would be happy with going there. 6 targets. These are usually like schools that are on like the U.S. world and like news that are like ranked pretty highly. Like I'd say about top 50. Um, and then 8 reach. I don't think anyone like an IV is a target. So I decided to apply to all the IVs and see if I could, get in. Because I think for a lot of people, the Ivy League admissions process is really based kind of like on luck almost. 3% is a very small percentage. That's like, 100 people that are very qualified and very, I don't know, leaders in their whatever they're doing, and like you're only allowed to pick 3. So it is almost kind of luck based. Um, but yeah, these were the results of my college application process. So once I oh wait, sorry, I forgot one thing. So yes, once I knew that I was deferred from Harvard, it was still my top choice at that time. So I still sent in letters of continued interest. So once you get deferred, you can send additional information to help with like the process. If anybody applied to Harvard and got deferred, let me know. It's definitely a process, and it can kind of be sort of demotivating, but if you can push through it, I think you still have a big shot. So yeah, I sent in a letter of continued interest. I asked for more recommendation letters from people, and reached out to admissions officers just to kind of get myself familiar with it. But yeah, and then like I said, these are my college application results. Um, yeah. So the biggest tips I have for the college application process after going through it is I noticed after sophomore year, you kind of watch all these like videos, or the fact that you're like everybody's here like listening to my process is already like something to think about, and it gets you a lot of like new ideas, or you might be just like thinking about this right now and be like, oh, I actually want to write about this topic. So I definitely recommend using like your notes app on your phone, like whenever, even if you're like listening to music and you like one particular thing about the music, just write it down. Or if you have like new ideas that are coming out for potential like essay topics, if you just write it down on your notes app, it makes it really easy once you are doing the college application process to like look back on those notes and see like, oh, which one actually sounds like a really good essay topic. And that's how I actually came up with my essay topics. I used to watch like a lot of YouTube videos and movies, and whenever they like had something that like made me really interested or curious about the topic, I would just write it down on my phone. And then whenever like a question came up on the Common App, I just looked back and thought more about what I wrote and whether or not that fit in. And then yeah, I guess that worked out. Also, something big that I realized once I got deferred was that real people read your like Common App application, um, which means like, oh, you really want to be personable with them. Like your writing shouldn't be very like statistics focused. I'd say it should like focus mainly on like your personal attributes. I think it's good to include a lot of like statistics, numbers, and all of that, but also making it sound in a way almost like humble or very like nice. Those are things that like admissions officers really look up to. Sorry, I'm getting notifications. But yeah, like I think there's also a couple of YouTube videos about how admissions officers actually deliberate your Common App. So they actually read every single thing you write. And then at the moment, they decide if they want to vouch for you or if they don't. And if they do want to vouch for you, they go to a committee meeting and they like talk about you and like give like everybody a quick synopsis. And then people decide if they liked you or not, and they just like raise their hand if they want to admit you and not if they don't. So that's kind of the process. So like showing a lot of like growth, a lot of like, personal qualities really helps. And then communicate, especially if you're, applying to prestigious colleges. They know that like if you're applying to one prestigious college, you're most likely applying to a lot of prestigious colleges. So what a lot of these colleges have is they track demonstrated interest. And what that basically is like they sometimes track whether or not you called them, whether or not you sent emails, whether or not you visited campus or learned more about it. So that also sort of plays a factor into your admissions process. I remember once I got deferred from Harvard, I started to call the admissions officers and like just ask them questions and like reference my application and stuff like that. But definitely don't overdo it. Very chill. Yeah. Okay, but this is I would say the biggest tip. With the Common App, another thing to consider is that admissions officers are going through so many different Common Apps, so many words. It's just like kind of almost clutters the page. So one thing I would say is show them a lot about you. So, try to fit in a lot of like quality information, but at the same time, also kind of space it out a little bit so that it's very easy to read and follow through. I'm not sure if you can see like the way I phrased or formatted my essay on the left here. Like it's just very easy to just like read and follow through, and they can make notes on it too. And when they go to those committee meetings to present, like it just kind of clicks for them compared to like it being super cluttered and like everything just one big essay. So I would definitely recommend using a lot of spaces, a lot of like different colors or formats. And yeah, but yes, show them a lot about you though. Try to show different perspectives. Like I know sometimes people going into the college admissions process go in with like, oh, I love science, so I'm just going to talk about science. But if you just talk about science, then that kind of waters down all the other qualities. But if you show other sides of you, like whether or not you do sports or whether or not you have like family responsibilities, or if you had like a big sickness that affected you and like all these other like factors, those like factors combine to make a well-rounded campus. I'll talk more about this in a second. But essentially, they want to show that you have a lot of life experience. So when you do come to campus, you can talk about those life experiences and show everyone that like your story is unique and you are unique, which is why they really want you. But just in general, these were my stats that got me into these schools. I took the PSAT. I got a relatively high score for a PSAT, so I didn't take the SAT until I got deferred, and then I submitted it after. But I would say like anything above like a 1500 or 1480 is a pretty good ballpark to go for. I think a lot of these colleges now are going SAT optional, which is really great if SAT isn't your strong suit. But I guess the biggest takeaway from this is that like grades are only like one part of it. Like as long as you hit like the minimum SAT score, the minimum GPA, you get yourself they say like you get your foot in the door, which means you're basically through like the first round of like applications. And then a lot of what determines whether or not you get in and you get an acceptance letter is those personal qualities and those essays or those interviews, and whether or not like admissions officers liked you and resonated with you and think that you would be a good fit for the college. So those were my ranks. I got first out of my high school. I applied undeclared. I wasn't sure what concentration or what major I wanted to do. I didn't do that for a lot of colleges. For some colleges, I did indicate that I was interested in science. For some, I didn't. And again, like I said, like this is almost like a lottery process. Like it is based on luck. So I wanted to maximize that just by showing like, oh, what happens if I apply undecided? What happens if I apply with a specific major in mind? And stuff like that. And also, I talked a lot about family responsibilities. Both of my parents work a lot, and I have a little sister. She's 5 years old. Her name is Nazakat, and yeah, I took care of her a lot. I took her to school, and I think that also speaks a lot. And then I would say the biggest thing, if you are thinking of applying to, Ivy League schools, is to really hone down on your honors, which are like these awards that you receive. Um, you know, I think admissions officers believe that like if you have these awards, it shows that you're very determined and you're very, um, you're making these like you're very proactive in your community, which is why you get these awards. So I would say just be very proactive, look out for any opportunities that arise, and just go for them. But yeah, those are my awards, um, and yeah, I think those are basically everything on this slide. So why did I think I got so lucky with the admissions process? It's very rare for someone to get into all 8 IVs. But I think what really helped with my case is one, the fact that I had passion projects. So going back, as you can see, like the honors, they're both in the sciences and research, but also in the humanities and poetry, which is not very common to find. I think a lot of people go and apply with like just focusing on research or just science, or some people just focus on one thing. But I think showing your other interests and kind of trying to combine them is something that I've noticed being like a common trend in the common application process. Also, research specific schools. Um, every single school has their like one thing that they're really passionate about. For Harvard, it's research, but also their humanities and econ department. For Yale, it's definitely their humanities department. They're very big on poetry. They're very big in the arts. For Brown, it's their, wait, what's Brown's? Open curriculum. Yeah, it's open curriculum. You get to take anything you want, and it's a little bit chill with like their grading system. For Columbia, it's their core curriculum. So if you're applying to Columbia, definitely talk about their core curriculum. For UPenn, I think it's the business school, but also the fact that it's in Philadelphia, which has a lot of benefits. Dartmouth is very big on sorority and fraternity life. They're also big on nature. And yeah, what else am I forgetting? Yeah, so just like learn about the specific schools, definitely go through like the list of professors that they have, see which ones you might be interested in like working under. And if you mention that in your applications, then it shows that like to colleges, like, oh, this kid is really interested in us. Like he wants to work under this professor. He knows about this much. So if he comes to our campus, he's going to be very well integrated. And so just making sure that you cater your essays to those specific schools allows you to do that. And I did that for every single Ivy League school that I applied to. For Yale, I talked a lot about poetry. I mentioned professors that specifically focus on my type of poetry. For, I think, Columbia, I talked about Central Asia. Being from Central Asia, there's a lot of professors at Columbia who focus in that like history kind of department. For Harvard, I talked about a lot about my research because Harvard's really passionate about that, but also combined it with like the poetry stuff. So just make it very specific to the school you're applying to, because then it shows that you really care about them and that you're really interested in them. Also demonstrate growth, show that you're growing over the years. I know like some of you guys might be a little younger and so your grades might not be the most perfect, but if you can show that you're growing, you're trying new things, that really speaks a lot. And then your essays, make sure to show a lot of like emotion, a lot of introspection, like a lot of big thoughts, big ideas, and how you kind of deal with them. And yeah, make it fun to read too for the admissions officers. And be unique, show so many sides of you. I think it's very hard to get it in this mindset that like, oh, this person applied and they got in because they did this, and so I'm going to do this. I think it's just better to see like, oh, what am I good at and what can I do to sort of like the same level of prestige or excel at it, but in your own sort of ways. And so that is through like passion projects. At the bottom here, I kind of showed a little diagram. I think a lot of people who get like rejected from these colleges is because they think that like, oh, I'm going to do some extracurriculars. I'm going to do some grades. I'm going to make sure that my grades are good. My SAT is good. And so they kind of become like this sort of ball that like everything is sort of really good, but nothing really special about the person. But then we call this like the spike versus like someone who has like the basic like minimum grades, the minimum SAT scores, the basic requirements, but then you have this like one thing that you're really, really passionate about, and you went like above and beyond to show that you really care for the subject. You know, it could be something like opening up a Telegram channel and making, you know, something very specific and allowing people to interact with it because you genuinely care about it. Or it could be something like you open a business and you're helping develop it, or you're, you know, involved in like a family business, but you're also turning it into some of your own responsibilities, and just showing something that like admissions officers can attach to your name and be like, oh, this is Behruz. His passion is he loves to combine science with poetry, and that sticks with the admissions officers. So when they do go to the committee meetings and they try to, you know, explain or talk about you, they could be like, oh, I love this person. Like the first thing that comes to mind is this. So yeah. Something I wouldn't recommend doing is copying or plagiarizing. Like I said, like it's very easy to find someone to look up to and then try to copy it. But I would say try to make your own path towards your own like goals. And then in your essays, don't show like hatred or say that you hate something or any negative emotion or immaturity. I don't think that's like looked up upon. And then I said the essay, but don't bullshit the application process. Like actually take your time to go through every single sentence that you write, just to go back a little bit. Like if you can see like some of the activities that here, like they have a specific word count that you need to meet, and sometimes it's hard to put everything that you did into such short words. So if you can find a way, like you can see here, I use like M dashes to kind of make it shorter, but also show the same amount of information. Just making it really simple, but also well thought out and intentional about it is, I think, the way to go. And don't do things just to get in. Like I don't think I need to worry about that, because I think all of you guys here who are listening to this are very active about going to college in the US. But I think I was in Uzbekistan. A lot of my friends are applying to colleges right now. I'm helping them out with it. And there's a lot of like scams in Uzbekistan, which is something to be worried about. Like they're like, oh, hey, like if you pay this amount of money, I'll help you get a visa. But that's not really how it works. I think the best way to do it is through the Common App process, or if you win like a green card. But apply to colleges, and if you can get in, then go through the visa process. I think the other ways to do it are a little risky and not attainable. But yeah, we can talk more about it if you have any questions. And if you can't get into Harvard, which is like a couple of things that I thought about once I got deferred, is actually that all colleges, like at the core, are the same. Like, you live on campus, you go to the classes, they teach the same stuff. And so it's really about what you make of the process. So something that I thought about once I actually got in was that I actually really liked the people at Yale. I liked Harvard. Everything about it was really nice. It had really nice facilities. But Yale had a much better community. The Yale kids were really nice. They're really they're just like super engaging, super active. And the dorm life, the food was really nice. And so I kind of wanted to go to Yale in that aspect. But I think ultimately what I decided was because I'm pre-med and I want to become a doctor. Harvard is more specialized in medicine than Yale. So that's kind of what, made me want to choose Harvard. But again, even if I went to Yale, I think I would still get the same medical knowledge that I need to apply to med school. And again, like at the core, all colleges are the same, and you can get into any college and still achieve like the same level of success. Um, but yes, and if you still want to like apply to Harvard, I would recommend you still go to the school that you got in. And if you don't like it, then you can apply to transfer. But I rarely meet people who go to a college and they don't like it and they want to transfer. I think, um, you know, getting into college is like a big um, deal for a lot of people. And so, yeah, I would just say like apply to colleges, just go try it out, see if you like it. Then if you don't, then you can transfer. But yes, and if you can't get a transfer, you can always network. I'll give you my information. You can always visit these campuses, meet people, and I think the people from Harvard are what make Harvard so special. And so, just networking, whether that be LinkedIn or Instagram, I think that really helps. But yeah, and in the future, I definitely do want to go to medical school. It's a big, tough process that I'm not really too sure about. But it takes around 4 years of additional schooling and then 2 years of residency and then 1 year of fellowship. So it's a very long process. But after that, I definitely do want to open up my own practice, like in Uzbekistan or Central Asia, multiple. And when I like retire, when I'm really old, I just want to open up a private school and help kids in Uzbekistan get into universities. Yeah, that is my big goal. I think there's a lot of issues with the process of applying to U.S. colleges in Uzbekistan right now, and I think it's a big market to target. There's so many after school programs, so many private companies trying to like sell their product. But I think it's just like, I think if I can make a school that ties students directly to U.S. colleges, I think might be the best way. But while I'm in college, I'm still interested in combining my interest in science and poetry. So I do want to publish one poetry book and one kid's story. And then to get into med school, I want to publish 2 research articles focused on biochemistry. Specifically, I think there was this recent founding about like the chemotaxis of forming thumbs in sea animals. So I think I'm going to focus on that for this summer. And then travel 4 new countries, doing research. This summer, I want to go to Kenya to do a biology internship there. And then, yeah, like Harvard has so much money that they are willing to just give away to people who are interested in doing research. And I want to use that money to be able to go to different countries like Kenya, for example, but also like Greece or Puerto Rico, and just visit. But yeah, this is kind of like how college has been going so far. I think what's so great about college that I didn't really experience in high school or before is like the people, just spending time with like the people. It's really nice. I made so many great friends here. I think college is definitely hard. And I think that if you're coming here for the first time, it's going to be very, very hard. But doing it with your best friends is going to make it so much more fun, so much more enjoyable. And so if you do get into college, I'd say the biggest thing that you should do is make as many friends as you can. But again, college isn't all about friends. If you can see here, there are many, many all-nighters that I had to pull, many assignments. These papers here on the bottom right, those are like all the questions that I had to do in one night, and it was very scary. But yeah, this is college. And oh my God, this is when I was studying for my final. But yeah, this was yesterday when I was making these slides. Yeah, I'm finished with my finals now, so that's great. But if you have any questions or you want to reach out, this is everything about me. You can reach me through Telegram. You can reach me through Instagram. I also have LinkedIn, and that's my email. But thank you guys so much. I'm excited to answer any more questions that you guys may have. But yeah, I'm going to stop sharing now. All right, awesome. I know like someone already like asked about the fact that I didn't give an interview before. To'g'risini aytsam, ko'zdan juda ham qo'rqaman. Ko'z tegsa deb yuraman, doim tuf qilib. O'shuning uchun intervyu anchadan beri bermadim. Keyin nima, siz yozuvdingiz. Mayli, bular hammasi nima, shu college applicationga qiziqadi, hech nima qilmas deb berdim. Shu, if you have any questions, let me know.
Juda qiziq story bo'ldi, lekin presentation davomida o'sha ko'zdan qo'rqqaningiz uchunmi humble bo'lib ketdingiz. Bu resultlar joylarini ham tezda bir sekundlarda o'tkazib yuborib.
Hali ham esdan chiqmaydi. Birinchi marta nima, shu Garvard applikatsiyani ochganimda, early application topshirganimda, ochganimda kirmadim, keyin nimaga kirmadim ekan deb o'ylab qarasam, keyin qo'rqdim-da. Bu ko'pchilik aytadi, Garvardga topshiryapman, shunaqa qilyapman dedim. Keyin nima, regular application rezultatlari chiqqanda o'zim ochmadim. Singlimga aytdim. 5 yashar nazokatxon shuni ochib ber desam, men qaramay o'tirdim. Keyin bittalab ezib chiqib ochdi. Hammasiga kiribman, keyin iye debman. Hali ham bilmadim shu qo'limi keyin yoki bilmadim shu.
Amazing. I think we have some questions in the comments, and people can write on the comment section of the last post. And if you want to, you can pick them like good ones which you want to answer, and you can, or also we can. So just look through them, and I think there might be some good ones.
Someone asked if my unweighted GPA is 67. No, I think my unweighted GPA was a 98. And my weighted GPA was a 103. I know a lot of people were interested in this in Uzbek. If you have any questions after this, just shoot me a text and I can explain it to you in Uzbek. Okay. Sounds good. Prezentatsiyani jo'natib yuborsam bo'laveradi. Ko'pchilik prezentatsiya haqida so'rabdi. Gap year before college, I wouldn't really recommend it, but gap year after college, if you're going to grad school or medical school, I would highly recommend it. Sounds good. What do you think was your spike in my application? Muhammad Amar Sorabte. I think my spike was the fact that I did science and also poetry, which is very rare for someone to do, but also combine it through activism. So I try to bring both of my interests, science and poetry, together and do a lot of activism, protests. I'm not sure if you guys remember, but 2018, 2019, when COVID happened, everybody was at home. There was a lot of riots happening for Black Lives Matter movements, for Asian American people, for climate, for everything. And so that was a big way for me to kind of get practice in doing activism, just making speeches and stuff. How can we research universities and how can we show our research to the universities? You can search, everything's on Google. Bitta hazil kashf qiladi shu Google haqida. Короче, hamma yo'lda topsa bo'ladi Googledan. Shunday kirib turib, nima universitetga application topshirayotganlaringda front page bas ekanligi research haqida yoki professor haqida o'shalarni yaxshi tanishib, nimaga shu universitet zo'rligini bilib olsalaring, juda ham katta yordam bo'ladi. But everything's on Google. Harvard community haqida Okay. Yeah, I have met Guzal Khan. There's actually 2 people that got in from Uzbekistan this past year. So it was Guzal, and there's this one other person who's my mentee, Shahruz. He was also very humble. He didn't want to be on the news. He didn't want to tell anyone, show anyone. He's doing research now at Harvard, but he's also a freshman. And yes, I have met Guzal Khan. They're in Hallworthy, and that's a dorm. But yes, I got a couple of lunches with them. I check up on them regularly. I want to make sure that like they're in good hands, and they're really doing really well academically. So I do check up with them pretty often. Um, okay. How would I approach the roommate supplement question? I think they specifically created this question. Um, they specifically created this question to for people who didn't show a lot of emotion or a lot of like personal attributes in the Common App, and they want to really see that like your personal qualities through this question. So I would say I can't say like one answer that like specifically applies to every person, but I would say like, oh, take a step back, read through your college application, and think like, oh, what else did I not show that I can show people? And then through that, show a different side of you that you haven't shown in other parts of your application. I think an easy way to do this is the fact that you are from Uzbekistan, and there aren't a lot of people in American colleges from Uzbekistan. And so talking about a lot of the cultural aspects of growing up there, the food, and all of that can help. Yes, I did apply to Columbia University. Again, if you're applying to Columbia University, definitely talk about the core curriculum. I think that's a very easy way to not get weeded out. Because I think when people are applying, like I said, to a lot of these Ivy League schools, they send in the same colleges. And if you're not really mentioning the core curriculum or something specific about Columbia, it's very easy for Columbia to be like, okay, I'm not going to take this person. So definitely mention that. Shamshid Beg so'rabdi, gap yura olganmisiz? Yo'q, gap yura olmaganman. Srazu high schooldan keyin ketganman. What's the acceptable SAT? I think anything above a 1480, a 1500 is good to go. Don't stress about it after. Do you think being a well-rounded student may hurt your application more than being a spiky student? I don't think it can hurt your application. I just think you need a spike to get into a lot of these top universities. I think being well-rounded can get you into those like safety schools that are just looking to admit people who meet those requirements. But I think for universities that are that are very competitive, they want you to have that spike. Okay, without SAT, topshirib ham 100% grant bilan kirish mumkinmi? Yes. Harvard or other Ivy League schools don't give scholarships based on like accomplishments. So even if you're like the I don't know, the president of Uzbekistan, Harvard would not give you a scholarship just because you're the president of Uzbekistan. They would base it based on how much you need. So they use it through calculating what you can actually pay. What's great about Harvard is they want you to graduate with zero debt. So if you can, so for people who can pay, they can pay. For people who can't pay at all, you can go for free. And there's a lot of like spectrum in between. But for the most part, for people applying from Uzbekistan, because I know that like the economics is horrible there and you can barely make any money to kind of keep a family going. If you're applying to Harvard, I can almost guarantee that you get full financial aid. So you're going to go for free. So I wouldn't worry at all about the financial costs of it. Just think about what can I do to get in. Someone asked, Jasur asked, what defines Harvard students? Can you describe what you recognize in other students? Again, it's that spike. I think going there, I thought everybody was going to be, like in those movies, like The Social Network, very stuck up, very like white, very, I don't know, boring. But everybody has like one thing that's so special about them. One of my friends, she is an actor. She has like crazy number of followers on Instagram. And she got those through just like making TikToks, but then shifting her TikTok career to working in movies. She's now like working in Disney. And yeah, another one of my friends, he did like music production, but then he was so interested in music production that he started to write scripts and music for Broadway. So things like that, like a lot of these people, especially my year, a lot of people went in SAT optional. So statistics didn't really play a role. A lot of the people in my year, they just have like one thing that's so special about them that they just kind of push through with the college application process. Um, okay. How do you manage if you have a lot of stuff to do? Um, that's a good question. Uh, I think that's a hard one to answer, but I think, you have so many hours in the day. I mean, I think now because of like phones and like TikTok and all this stuff, I think it's easy to get distracted. Um, so just kind of like setting goals in mind, like waking up is like, hey, I want to get this done, or like, hey, this month I want to do this. And if you can stick to it, these like small little things start to compound and like build up to bigger things. Um, so yeah, what do you think if your parents didn't pay green card and come to the US? Would you be able to get into those universities? That's a great question. Um, I don't think I would have applied to U.S. universities if I didn't come to the United States. I'm not sure though. My dad had a pretty good position. He worked in anti-monopoly, and my mom was just a banker. But all three of my grandparents were all professors or teachers in academia. So I think I would have stayed in Uzbekistan and like actually went to school and gotten my medical license, and probably went to Germany and like up level my license, and then come back and still open up a practice. I think the fact that I am at heart, like in the US, I just took like the opportunity as much as I can and made the best of it. Um, will you make a video from zero to applying to college? I don't think I will make a video. I don't really like doing interviews. I think I don't know, it's just scary to me. كۆزدان ڕاستانە خۆڵقەمان. داوازمانە شوونە ڤیدیۆ دیگە قلب. So is doing research so valuable to Harvard? I think no, it depends for everyone. I think if you're in the sciences, I think it's definitely valuable. But again, like everybody's different. Like I said, you don't have to do research. Like going back to my friends, they wrote music and that was enough. Some people write art, publish art, do a lot of these things, but it's just a matter of like making sure you make the most of it and you're kind of showing that you're being proactive and getting these recognitions. Can you talk about your extracurriculars? My extracurriculars were all in the United States, so I don't think that would be useful, but it was just a lot. I did a lot during high school. What is the most top 3 thing that universities are looking for in an applicant? Again, specific to every college. So I would look into the college that you're applying to. 2, minimum grades. 3, just show those personal qualities. Can you share your Telegram channel? I don't have a Telegram channel, but you can find everything about me on my LinkedIn. I have a 2-year gap year. If I explain the reason why I took, it won't be a problem when you're out there. No, they actually have a specific section. Oh, sorry. Let me read the question again. If I have a 2-year gap experience, can I explain it in my college application process? Yes, you can explain it in your college application process. There's a section that's dedicated for like extenuating circumstances. And if you can show that during your gap year, you did a lot of, growth, a lot of like new stuff, and you actually used it for something, then I can actually be useful. Should I include activities that are related to my major, or should I make them diverse? Do both. Definitely include stuff that is specific to your major, but also include stuff that is very personal to you. I remember one of my friends, he had like a very specific interest, and he made like Muppets, and he sold them to people who were like fighting for cancer. So that was something cool that he did. Let's see. Okay. There's a lot of questions. I can maybe take some time after the call to answer each of them in the chat. But if anybody else has any last minute questions, feel free to unmute and ask. And yeah.
Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious that you didn't give like interviews, because people who already gave, they see that many people ask the questions which can be easily Googled and they can find on the internet. So considering that, okay, actually we had a few questions. I've seen your link tree, and do you think link tree is something important, because it's like many things and you can just show it by one link, and should we include it at all? And do you think it's important? or we can cope without a link tree?
Oh yeah, I included a link tree because I had a lot of like visuals that I wanted to show admissions officers. They sometimes ask for like a website that you have. I didn't want to make a website, so I just put my link tree. But if you have like awards or pictures from events or TED speak, like if you've spoken at a TED talk, but a lot of visuals that show that you're a leader, then I would recommend making a link tree and just adding it to your application. And if your admissions officer has the time, they'll definitely go check it out and see like and learn more about you and like put a face to the application. And I think that can be really helpful.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, we've asked this question from Gazafan, but again, let's see this from your perspective. What values does Harvard and its students have?
Oh, what values does Harvard? I think just leaders. They're all leaders in their own field. That's something I noticed about the medical school, the graduate school as well. Someone asked in the chat whether or not I was going to go to Harvard Medical School. I don't think so. I think Harvard Medical School is for leaders in medicine. I want to be a practicing doctor, not a leader in medicine. Basically means you're doing research to build the knowledge base that medicine currently has. But I want to be like a practicing doctor, so I'd probably go to NYU or Columbia for medical school. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And one of the speakers described it that since Harvard is it's one of the biggest, like the most famous unis, and when people they get in, they said like school spirit. It's all like you already in the Harvard, you are already in the best place, and you can just calm down and sort of like relax a bit. So is it true, or do they? And they describe that some schools like in Princeton, they say you gotta do more, and how do you feel about that? Like, do you agree?
No, I think for Harvard specifically, once you get in, I think it depends on what you want to do after. I have both, like, I've seen both kind of those extremes. One, people who want to go work in like econ or venture capital or consulting firms, which are very like easy ways to make money. They don't really worry about grades anymore. They don't really do any big like project. So they're fine with just like going to classes and like getting the grades and stuff, versus people who do want to go to grad school, law school, medical school. They still have to go through the process of like applying to college all over again. And so we do have to continue like building volunteer hours, building extracurriculars, getting more awards, getting published, and all of those things. So I think it depends person by person. But in terms of school spirit, I think the school spirit aspect is great. We go to football games, there's Harvard, Yale, there's a lot of parties, there's a lot of like social events. So school spirit is, I think, off the charts.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. Okay. And if you were given a chance, and let's say not the chance, if you were reapplying, what would you do different? Pretty obvious that you wouldn't do, but
what would you not apply to Harvard early? Because I think applying to Harvard early, you get the same kind of percentage of getting in. I think this year was 7%. Regular admissions is 3% for Harvard. I would have actually applied to Yale because for Yale, their regular decision is around 4% to get in, but for their early application, it's around 10 or 11%. So you have a better chance of getting in. And once I got deferred, I was kind of scared. So I think having that sort of like safety net that I was talking about, just so you know that you were going to go to college, might have helped with stress.
And by the way, I heard that you choose between Yale and Harvard in a coin flip.
Oh yeah, I did choose between Harvard and Yale on a coin flip. It was basically because I really liked both of the schools, and I had met a lot of friends at both who were going to choose Harvard and who were going to choose Yale, and so I just put them on a Zoom screen and I like asked which one I should choose because I was genuinely undecided. I liked both of the schools, and so I ended up just like flipping a coin and it landed on Harvard. So yeah, but again, like I said, like the reason I did that was because I knew that both of those colleges were going to give me the same amount of opportunity, and I also didn't want to have to carry like the weight of like, oh, I made the wrong decision. So I just flipped the coin flip. And so if anything went wrong, I could have always said like, oh, it's because of the coin flip. It's not my fault. But yeah.
Yeah. And do you think if you make undecided, especially for international, since it's pretty, as you mentioned it, like people have to have a spike, and if they're already good at something, when they already have a vision, it's like easier to get into. You made it undecided, right? So, like, would you recommend the same for internationals?
I think it depends. I think again, case by case, everybody has their own little interests and stuff. So I would decide for yourself. Sorry, someone asked the question. Let me just put it. Yeah. Yes, I would say it depends on case by case. But if you're really passionate about one thing, then go and put your major. And if you think that's going to help, but again, you can like change it up a little bit. You're probably applying to more than one school. So for some schools, you can declare a major. For some, you can go undecided. The reason I went undecided was because I was genuinely not sure which major I would choose. And so because my interests were also kind of different, like science and like English, it made sense to go undecided. But if you have, what's it called? If you have a very distinct interest, then I would say go for a major. Oh, and if you do decide a major, you can search up the major for the specific college that you're applying to, and they have like specific departments. And if you can like look through it, see stuff that you might be interested in it, and if you can mention those specific things on your application, you have a better chance of getting in.
Mm-hmm. So I think we are coming close to an end, and the last question is, it's our classic question which you ask from everyone. So probably usually get questions asked, and right now too. And what is the question you usually expect but don't get?
Oh, that's a question I usually expect, but don't
Yeah,
get.
you would. Yeah, you would say you want it, but no one asks it.
Oh, interesting. I don't know actually. Again, like I don't do interviews a lot, but I think something that I would want someone to ask me is I don't. That's a hard question. What is something I want someone to ask me, but nobody has asked me? I would say like why I wanted to do poetry, because I think, um, and the answer for that would be just like my little sister. I was reading her books, and I got like little books, like Dr. Seuss books, and I was kind of like shocked at how well like Dr. Seuss or other authors are able to convey like big words in such like small sentences, and so that's what I wanted to do. And yeah, that's a crazy question. Wow.
Yeah, simple things, simple question, simple answer. Well, I think this is almost an end of our session, and I want to say thank you again. Behruz, sizga katta rahmat bugungi session uchun. Juda ko'pchilik o'zlariga savollariga javob topdi. Xo'p, yana rahmat va oxirgi so'zingiz bo'lsa aytsangiz, sekin session tugataveramiz.
Yo'q, rahmat katta. Hammaga omad tilayman college application process bilan. And good luck. Have a good one. Bye bye.
Bye bye, thank you. Xo'p, Behruz bilan ham sessionimiz, webinar o'z nihoyasiga yetdi. Ko'pchilik savollar so'rashyapti. Afsuski, ayrimlari Google'dan topilsa ham bo'ladigan. Oldin Google'dan qidirib ko'ringlar. Juda ko'pchilik aytishadi buni. Men ham yana qaytaryapman. Xo'p, endi keyingi spikerimizga keladigan bo'lsak, har doimgi traditsiyaga sodiq qolgan holda, keyingi spiker haqida guess qilib ko'ramiz. Keyingi spiker. Xo'p. Keyingi spikerimiz Hop. Dartmouth o'quvchilarini so'rashyapti, Ulug'bekdan so'rashyapti, Browndan so'rashyapti, Yale'dan. Hop. Xo'p, sizlarga ozgina hint berib o'tib ketaman. Ular nima desak bo'ladi? Davlat sponsorshipida va hozirgi kunda menimcha o'sha ertangi session juda ko'pchilikka foydali bo'ladi, chunki hamma ham aynan shunaqa Harvard, Stanfordlarga kiravermaydi. Chunki kimdir hammani backgroundini hisobga olish kerak. Kechroq boshlaganlar bo'lishi mumkin degan holatga qarab va o'sha bitta